Things going wrong, it happens. It happens to all of us. You get flat tires, you crash, you bonk. It happens. And dwelling on it literally has no positive effect. There is nothing positive that comes from throwing a wobbler, losing your mind, dwelling on it. Like zero benefit to any of those things. The only thing that is beneficial is fixing it as much as you can and moving on and continuing. And so, whether it's a camera not working or a mechanical or anything, like the goal is to have a memory like a goldfish. And like 10 seconds later, you've forgotten that this terrible thing happened and you're just raising your bicycle again.
Glamour, glitz, impressively thick top knots, yoga in the back of a VW microbus, 15-gallon straw hats, flowing linen smocks, fire dancing in a thong on the roof of a $300,000 Sprinter van parked next to Elon Musk's PJ in his theme camp at Burning Man. That's the imaginary van life social media sold us and that the New Yorker deified in the 2010s. The reality is different. I'm drawn to real people doing audacious things. And that's why I wanted to have retired van lifers Sid Schultz and Macky Franklin on the show. They're professional mountain bike racers on a quest to race the best and most challenging mountain bike races they can find and to share those adventures on their YouTube channel. They're also a married couple, and they've gone from having no idea how to make videos to more than 17 million views since they launched their channel, Sid and Macky. Along the way, they've given viewers an unvarnished look at the reality of van life, 5-gallon buckets, rotting half and half, and all, along with pro athlete life and creator life, as they've achieved some big results in mountain bike races in the United States and around the world. Sid and Macky now live in a larger version of a van that has no wheels, no engine, and does have a sauna inside. It is called a house. They keep making cool content, and they're here to talk about what they've done, what they've learned, and why basic rest and recovery are the dimensions of being good at things that everyone knows about and almost everyone fucks up. You can find Sid and Macky on Instagram at Sid and Macky, and their YouTube channel is Sid and Macky. That's SYD and MACKY. You can find those links in the show notes. Choose the Hard Way is a podcast about how hard things build stronger humans. I make this podcast because I love sharing my guest stories. It's free. And all I ask is that you take 5 seconds to go into Apple Podcasts or Spotify and please rate the show 5 stars, hit subscribe. And if you want to go the extra mile, please write a positive review. Even just a few words makes a big difference. I want to keep sharing these stories with you. And when you hit 5 stars and leave a review and subscribe, you help to make it happen. I've been doing a lot of episodes about cycling lately because it's something I've loved for the vast majority of my life since I became conscious of bicycles and the places they could take me as a human being. And I plan to do more episodes like this and also to keep trying new things. Who would you like to hear on the show? What would you like me to try? Give me a shout at HardwayPod on social media. And you can also email me at choosethehardway@gmail.com. Now, let's hear from Sid and Macky.
I think what we've learned this year is that like optimal is overrated and doing things is important.
I think that's a great way to put
But
it.
we like doing the sauna ice bath.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if we didn't like doing it, there are other ways to recover.
Well,
like people are like, do you have to go in ice water? It's like, no.
That's something we've actually been talking about, I feel like quite a bit this year, is like ice bath and sauna. We're really excited we have it. We really love it. But like the truth is we're talking like a 1% thing. Like that's a sexy 1% thing, basically. And if you actually want to recover, you need to be prioritizing the like 10% things, which is
Sleeping
sleep
mostly.
and nutrition and like fueling. And, there's all these things that people are like, oh, well, I'd rather just get a sauna because it's
That
more
sounds
fun.
fun.
And, you get to sit in a hot box for a while. Like, but that's a 1% thing. And if you're not doing the other things, like, sure, that's fine, but you're not tipping the scales much. And like, until you have those significant things dialed, there's really no point in doing the 1% things.
How do you feel you're doing in all of the 10% buckets currently?
I think this is like our year of dialing that in for sure. Or our year of, I think I said, doing the obvious shit that we've somehow avoided in the past. It's amazing how, as human beings, we are capable of avoiding the things that we know would make us better. One of those was like getting to the race on time and getting a warm up has been like a big focus for us this year. It's like really obvious, but yet was also a thing that we were just not doing like 50 to 60% of the time.
Yeah, it was embarrassing, really.
Why was that happening?
Time management. Yeah, we could make excuses. There's always like I think that's the thing, is there's always some reason on a particular day, but those could all be avoided if you got up earlier and like allowed some buffer time, I would say.
Yeah. Planning, time management, like, yeah, things happen.
The obvious things, like I was saying.
Exactly.
What did you shift to ensure that you started to get on the right track with that specifically?
Well, we're still working on it, I would say. I think so. We did a stage race in Moab a couple of weeks ago, and this was one where we were like, okay, like we're just going to get up half an hour earlier, like be organized the night before, get there early, have time to do a warm up. And it was a 2-day, and then it was supposed to be a 3-day race. It ended up being a 2-day race. We were 50% successful, but it was because the one day we showed up and like it was 24 degrees Fahrenheit at the start. So everything was messed up and my dropper post cable was frozen. And so we had to do all these other things. So we didn't get a warm up, but we were like, if we had not been early, it would have been catastrophic.
Yeah, if we hadn't shown up
done the race
in time to do the warm up, we wouldn't have been able to fix the dropper post cable that froze.
So mountain bike racing, there's always something going on.
But I think that, your question was, what did we do to like change that? And I think, honestly, we really just said, this is a priority. We need to make this a priority. Like, instead of just being like, wow, excuse, like we just need to get up half an hour earlier, which means we need to make sure we go to bed half an hour earlier. And like, you just make that a priority. And yeah, it sounds easy, but obviously it's all harder than it sounds.
Yeah, absolutely. And for people who are listening, I don't get into the, hey, here are 3 things you can do to do things X, Y, and Z. Personally, I've listened to a ton of podcasts and have for, 15 plus years at this point. And what I often find is by the end of a 1 to 3 hour podcast, I've probably heard between 5 and 50 things that I'm supposed to do to be the world's most optimal human being. And I've forgotten all of them. And then I start to get stressed out about all the things that I'm not doing. I really like what you shared about there being some basics that can account not for marginal gains, but for some step change improvements. And I have to say that getting to the start time online thing, any of my friends that are listening, I'm thinking of my friend at Blake of Today out there, TikTok superstar, who was a longtime training partner and racing companion of mine. And he unfortunately has been subjected to arriving maybe after a race has started a few times because of me. And in fact, this weekend I just did Rasputica in Vermont. I'm going to do a full episode, I think, about my experience there, which again, I don't typically do, but it was quite a remarkable experience. I was unable to sleep for the entire night prior to the event. And therefore I had one of my most difficult days on the bike ever, even though I would say I'm at a lifetime high when I look at my data and my wattage, I'm performing at the best I probably ever have. I was unable to sleep the night before the race. And then I was texting my buddies, Jamie and Morgan, the morning of the event. And they had told me the night before, they're like, yeah, we're going to get up to the parking lot probably around 6:30, 6:45 a.m. I was like, wow, that's nuts, because the race starts at 9. So it's like, granted, there were 1,500 people who needed to park in this parking lot. But I was like, that's kind of crazy. So I got up that morning, I texted them, and I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to ride up there probably around 8, because I was still staying relatively close to the venue. It was 40 degrees outside. So I was like, whatever, I'll just ride up there. And they're like, hey, man, the race starts at 8. And I had just eaten like a massive pile of pancakes, just had my coffee. I was like, oh, that's in 40 minutes. I now need to do all of the stuff that we all know you need to do before a race, sometimes a couple of times, and get up to the start. So that was how my day started after I had an entire night of literally not sleeping, which happens to me incredibly infrequently. I'll save that for another podcast. I guess I've kind of gotten into it, but that is one of the things. I saw your Moab video. I saw the frozen cable, and as people who do this for a living and are then making content about it, the level of complexity boggles my mind. So I'm really curious, what other kinds of situations have you run into, and what are those additional layers of stress that start to stack up when not just I have to go perform, but I hope my van works today, and is my GoPro charged, and is my mount the right mount? So what's that like to walk into these scenarios, not just with the pressure to perform, which your livelihood kind of rides on, but you have to get the content?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, the content can sometimes be the proverbial straw that breaks the camel's back, because when the GoPro doesn't work, man, like that's happened a couple times, and that's like the one thing that apparently mentally I cannot handle in a race. Like it's just really funny, because like when the GoPro's working and things are going wrong, like I think there's a part of my brain that's like, this is part of the story. Like I'll just talk about it. It's fine. But we had a race in BC last year. First, it was a 6-day stage race. The first day, the GoPro, the SD cards were just airing out. So like
on both of our cameras.
Yeah, it worked at the start and then aired out immediately. And oh man, I just lost my mind. I was so mad. You're hitting every button and like trying to pull the battery out and put it back in, because like I didn't know what the problem was. So like sometimes that will fix it, while you're racing. And yeah,
it was not good.
Not good. So I think that's an evolution of how to make that switch when the cameras aren't working back to like pure race mode. Be like, okay, you could still perform well in the race. You gotta just let it go that there's not going to be a video.
I think that's true of racing in general, though, is sometimes things go wrong. And if you could just accept that they've gone wrong and move on with your life, or the race in this case, like that is the recipe for success. Because things going wrong, like it happens. It happens to all of us. You get flat tires, you crash, you bonk, it happens. And dwelling on it literally has no positive effect. There is nothing positive that comes from throwing a wobbler, like losing your mind, dwelling on it, like zero benefit to any of those things. The only thing that is beneficial is fixing it as much as you can and moving on and continuing. And so, whether it's a camera not working or a mechanical or anything, like the goal is to have a memory like a goldfish. And like 10 seconds later, you've forgotten that this terrible thing happened and you're just raising your bicycle again. But it just does add...
Easier said than done.
Oh, easier said than done. But also it adds like trying to record these races and get content around these races adds one more level of things that can go wrong. And I think that's where it gets difficult. Like, we've gotten pretty good at talking to the camera, remembering to hit the record button, those kind of things. we've gotten fairly good at remembering the night before to plug everything in, make sure everything's charged, put in new SD cards, all that. But any additional system you have is another possibility for failure. And that's where I think it gets kind of stressful. You're just like, cool, I have to make sure my body is ready and my bicycle is ready and all the cameras are ready. So.
But I think it's kind of funny. This hasn't happened recently, but we used to somewhat frequently get comments on our YouTube channel of people being like, you'd be a lot faster if you didn't wear a camera, which is kind of funny when it's like on the video that they're watching. You're like, you wouldn't be watching this if we didn't wear a camera, but like, thanks for the hot tip. We haven't gotten that as much recently, but I don't know. We've thought about it and talked about it. And I think like, I don't think we would be faster without the cameras. I don't think that little bit of weight takes away from...
I mean, come on, it's probably like 300 grams. 300, That's significant, 300 guys. Grams.
I don't think that takes away from like what we get from making videos and having a community and like a reason to be racing beyond just for ourselves. Because I think racing at a professional level can feel like, I don't want to say selfish exactly, but like a very self-centered pursuit. And I think the cameras kind of help us keep that in perspective a lot of the time, because, if things go badly for us, like that is, people are going to learn from that, from our experience. It's going to make a good story. It's also like the results, like the race results don't matter to us as much as they used to, because we have an income stream from YouTube, but also I think, again, like kind of in the perspective is that most people don't even have the opportunity to like think about winning a bike race or being in the top 10%. And that's like pretty cool that we're there. And like, what's the difference between 5th and 6th at the end of the day? Like, that's not something you're going to remember like 5 years, 10 years down the line. So, but you might remember, the experience of doing the race.
And to build on that, nobody else is really paying as much attention as we all think they are. Like, I know who won national championships last year, I think. And I race bikes professionally. Like, your average mountain bike rider, even racer, really they're paying attention to their own results and like maybe those of their like couple close friends. And that's like, we're all in our own little bubbles in our own little world, and that's totally fine and makes sense. And so worrying too much about results that like nobody's really paying attention to, like, and it's kind of nice to have that perspective, because I think through our YouTube channel, we do get to interact with with people who are what I consider like your more like the bigger population of mountain bikers.
Yeah.
It's easy when you're racing to feel like, oh, everyone who rides a mountain bike races at a really serious level and is trying to like race professionally.
But and knows who these like 10 people are.
Yeah, because you're seeing the same people at races and you're hanging out with them, and like, so to you, it's really important whether or not you were, like Sid said, 5th or 6th. But 99.9999% of the mountain bike population has no idea and doesn't care. And so it helps like put that in perspective of, we're doing this mostly because we want to be doing it, because it's not like this is, mountain bike racing is not changing the world. The result you get is not going to change your life.
Yeah, and every now and then we get comments on YouTube, we'll have ridden or raced with someone that, maybe they've done a couple Olympics or like done some World Cups, and people are like, who's that?
Yeah.
We're like, oh.
That's a good reminder.
Yeah.
And at this point, I know one of your recent series of videos was about going down to the Andes to do a stage race. And when I think about, again, going back to my experience last weekend, I hadn't traveled to do a race in quite a while. And I got to drive to this one, which anyone who's listening, if you've done a bike race, it's always much simpler to be able to, ideally you just get to ride your bike to it and start. That's incredibly rare. If you get to drive there, that's better. If you drive and have to stay overnight, that's a higher degree of complexity. If you have to fly somewhere, then drive somewhere, then stay overnight and race, more complex. And then international travel, wow, just like above my pay grade. So how far did you travel to get to that race? How many hours? And how did the level of complexity for that event compare to what you've done in general?
Yeah, so we have actually raced internationally quite a bit. We have done, I think Macky's done something like 24 Enduro World Series events. I've done less than that.
But still quite a few.
We sort of stepped away from Enduro World Series racing in like 2019. But before that, we were doing at least 2 international trips a year to race, and to race some pretty stressful, high pressure events. So this was not out of the norm for us, though we had not done it since like pre-pandemic times. So there were some like, oh, right, we forgot,
Yeah.
our raincoats.
Yeah. We were a little out of practice. Yeah, there's it definitely adds something. We were lucky with this trip. We went down 2 weeks before, so it was pretty low pressure on the way out. And our friend upgraded us to business class on the way out, which we had never done that before. That was the best thing ever.
That's the way to do it if you can afford it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know.
So travel-wise, we live in Los Alamos. We flew out of Albuquerque, so that's about a 2-hour drive. So I think we had an afternoon flight because it was an overnight flight. So left in the afternoon, finished packing that morning, got everything in the car, drove for 2 hours. You drop all the luggage off with one person, you park the car, you take the shuttle back to the airport. Like each of those little steps, like just adds a little something in terms of stress. Then we had a layover in Houston.
Yeah.
And then we had our long flight to Santiago. And so, that, like Sid said, we had a friend.
Another flight.
Yeah. And then another flight from there to Temuco, then picked up a rental car and then drove for a couple hours. So like each of those steps, not only is there the logistics of like making sure you get to the flight on time and actually get on the flight, which we have missed a flight before because we were sitting in front of the wrong gate. So like, there's each of those steps. And then every time your bikes have to go from one flight to another, there's the worry of like, is my bike going to make it? Or are we going to get there and not have any bikes? And then like have to try to track our bikes down. And then, we both speak Spanish. So fortunately, communication in South America was fairly straightforward. But it had been a while since we were down there. So you're kind of like trying to remember how to speak Spanish and how to understand Spanish. And, and then you're driving in a foreign country where technically the rules are essentially the same, but like in practice, things are a little bit more fluid down there, which you're just at a slightly higher level of stress because you're in a different country and you're driving and you really don't want to get pulled over because how are you going to communicate as easily with the police? There's all these little stressors that add up on international travel that make it harder. And, if you can simplify that for yourself by coordinating things ahead of time or like having a plan, like for us, we got down there and didn't take cash out because there wasn't an ATM at the airport.
It probably was. We didn't look.
That's true. We didn't find an ATM. And of course, we like get out of the airport and we start driving. The first thing we do is hit a toll booth. And the toll booth doesn't take credit cards. So, we're like, well, what do we do here? And they're like, okay, well, we can take a credit card, but you have to go like park and then walk into the building and then pay the thing. And we were going to take your license, your driver's license as collateral. So there's just all these things that we're like, we're such idiots. It was
a big cluster that resulted in us like backing down the median of the shoulder of a very busy highway going the wrong way.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And it's I think what we've learned over time and have gotten better at is the more things you can do and plan ahead of time, the better your life will be. Like, if you can think, hey, we just got here, we're probably going to need cash. I'm going to go to an ATM. I'm going to get the cash out. You have your rental car booked so that there's no like, oh, are they going to have a pickup truck available? Like everything you can do ahead of time when you're at the comfort of your own home with good internet is just going to make things better. And so that's, I think,
speaking from experience of not doing that for years.
Yes, for years.
Because you can save money if you wing it completely. Like it does usually end up being cheaper, but we did get ourselves into lots of sleeping in airports and
I think that's been our one of our big focuses this year is like, how can we do things ahead of time to make the experience of doing a race less stressful?
Yeah. That's probably another 10% thing like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I don't know if it'll make you feel any better, but what you just described experiencing on the highway there, I live in Hope, Maine, and every time I need to go down to Boston or go somewhere, I feel like I have that same experience at every toll booth in Massachusetts. And then I end up, well, it's a little bit different because then I just end up getting a ticket in the mail at some point, but I never seem to have the right amount of cash or the cash has been removed from my car or whatever,
Yeah.
What a wild world that we live in. So to go way back to the start of all of this, why did you start doing this specific project? When did you have the idea and when did it come into being?
Which project?
Like YouTube in general?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that's kind of an interesting story. We but had been racing for several years. Macky,
I think we should go. We should go a little bit. So,
okay.
I got my pro card in 2006. I was 2018, something around there. In mountain biking, having a pro card simply means you're racing at the highest level, like in the highest category. It does not mean you are making any money doing it. In fact, you are probably spending a lot of money doing it and making no money doing it. So I got my pro card in 2006. That was the same year I started college. We both went to Middlebury College in Vermont. So I would, do school during the year. I raced collegiate, which was always a blast. Wouldn't really train seriously. Summer would come around. I'd start racing again. I'd race myself into shape over the course of the year. But I was balancing racing bicycles and doing school. We met at Middlebury College. We were both on the bike team. It's just a, club team for fun thing.
Collegiate racing is super fun.
Yeah. If you're in college or on your way to college, go race collegiate. It is a blast. So then once I graduated, Sid had another year of school. So I, at that point, kind of said, I want to try racing bicycles. I was doing freelance web design on the side because that was a way to make money that I could do from anywhere. And then when Sid graduated in late 2013, at that point, we basically lived nomadically for the next 7 years.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like we started in a small orange car and with bikes on the top, and we'd set up a tent every night, which was brutal, but we did it. And then we got a van, which was ancient and like literally the floor was rusting through.
It cost $1,400, so you get what you pay for.
Get what you pay for.
Turns out. And
then we got a slightly nicer van, meaning it was a 2006 instead of a 1998. And then over the years, we sort of like, oh hey, this we have a little bit more money we can spend. By spending a little bit more money, we can make our lives a little bit more comfortable and a little bit easier, which will allow us to race a little bit better and focus on it a little bit more. And then maybe 2014, 15 was when we started making some money from racing bicycles. And at that point, it was really just sponsorship.
It's not enough to live on.
Yeah, I mean, it was
barely.
I think there were years where when we did our taxes, our combined adjusted gross was $12,000. So, we were basically just living absolutely as cheaply as possible, full dirt bag, bouncing between our parents' houses, which we were fortunate in that both our parents were super supportive. And just kind of, all of our money went towards gas and entry fees. And that was what we did, is we basically just bounced from race to race and lived out of a van, and we were sick a lot and we were exhausted a lot, and we were like,
it was also a lot of fun.
It was also a lot of fun. Yeah.
But wouldn't do it that way again, probably.
Yeah.
Did that just become a lifestyle by default or by design?
I think a little bit of both. Mostly default. I think we're both pretty practical people in that we were like, well, we could get a job to pay rent, or we could not have jobs and not pay rent. And how can we do that? We could get the cheapest possible vehicle that we can live out of, and then we can take the money that we can make from, and it was pretty much sponsorship at that point. And then we can put that all back into racing. So we were obviously at this, the reason this was able to work is that we did have sponsorship. We pretty much did not have to pay for bike equipment at all. So it really was like we just had to make enough money to feed ourselves and pay entry fees and pay gas, and we could kind of make it work.
So it was, it wasn't like we were like, this is, our goal in life is to live in a cheap, rusted out van and, be bums. But it was a means to an end. Our goal was we want to be able to race bicycles and travel to cool places and do what we love. How can we afford to do that? Well, we can keep our expenses as low as possible in every other way. And we did that for a long time. And so, that, I guess the reason I shared all of that was to give you an idea of where we were in 2017 when we were like, hey, YouTube is a thing. Surprise.
We were kind of at the point where we were like, well, we were extremely dependent on sponsorship, which is a very hard way to make a living. It's very stressful. Like the 1 year can be great and you can have a great relationship with a company, and then the people you were working with just leave, find another job, especially in the bike industry. There's a ton of turnover. So it was every year starting in like October through December, it was like starting over. Like it didn't really matter what your contracts you had in the past. It was all on a yearly basis. It was all like you had to reprove yourself every year. And sometimes it had nothing to do with you, and the budget was just gone. So that we were in 2017 kind of at the point where we're like, we need to do something else to make this sustainable.
We need to diversify.
And, YouTube was something we're kind of seeing people making a living doing videos, and we were like, could we do this?
And we had filmed we had filmed some over the previous 5 years that we had been together. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, we actually have that footage still and go back and we're like,
it's a riot.
We actually filmed a certain amount of this trip we did in South America in 2012, but we never did anything with that footage. That footage existed and was never used.
And a lot of it's real bad.
Oh, yeah. But cameras
have come a long way.
Yeah.
Action cameras in 2012 were pretty terrible.
But in hindsight, there's kind of these signs of we really should have been doing video stuff. We were filming things and we had some inkling of storytelling and what is interesting and what is worth filming. And we just never did anything with that footage. So 2017, we were like, well, let's try doing this YouTube thing. Maybe it can help us make money other ways. Maybe it just makes us more valuable to sponsors because we're reaching more people. And so 2017, what did we do? 10 videos over the course of
that. Not that many.
Yeah.
We did not know what we were doing. We did not understand YouTube at all. We were kind of just throwing stuff up there.
Yeah.
See what would stick. But you have to just start somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I think we get a lot of emails and messages from people that are like, I want to start a YouTube channel. What do I do? And we're
Good luck.
Yeah. It's edit a video and put it on the internet, right? You just have to start, and you have to start making quote unquote finished videos. Like you can't, you have to put it out there and get feedback and see and like progress from there. You can't be stuck like editing the same thing for a year. I think a lot of people are really paralyzed by
they want it to be
perfection.
Good. And the truth is your first videos are not going to be good. They're just not. Like, no matter how long you spend, no matter how good you are at video editing, your first videos are going to suck. And that's okay. Like, you put them up there and some people will watch them and some people won't. And you just keep doing that and you'll figure out, what do you enjoy doing? What do people enjoy watching? And so we did that for 2017, basically. And we look back at those videos and
they're terrible.
They're pretty terrible. I mean, there are moments that we're like, ooh, that was really good, but mostly they're terrible. We had no storyline. We had no like you had to know us already for the videos to make sense, which is funny because nobody had any idea like who we were or what we were doing, which is fine. Why would they have? And then 2018, we're kind of like, okay, let's try to do this a little more seriously. We did a like how to YouTube class essentially with a guy named Tim Schmoyer, who runs Video Creators, the YouTube channel, and learned a lot from Tim and his team. And then we were really fortunate in that we reached out to some of the other big mountain bike YouTube channels. We reached out to Seth's Bike Hacks and BKXC and sort of said, hey, here's who we are. Here's what we're doing. We're coming through your area. We would love to meet if you guys are open to that. And they were super welcoming and super kind. And, that helped us a lot at the beginning there. Is like Seth posted a video about our van because it was very much not your traditional van build. We slept on a rooftop tent on top and we had dirt bikes in the back and like all this stuff. But that got us essentially 3,000 subscribers overnight. So we went from like 1,000 to 4,000 in the course of like 24 hours. And that,
also I just getting the opportunity to spend time with people who were doing kind of like what we wanted to be doing was cool. We learned a lot.
Yeah. Making a living doing mountain bike related YouTube. And that was really beneficial to us. And, that sort of started it. And the thing that I'm kind of most glad in hindsight that we did, and we had moments of not doing this, but overall we did this, is we really just did the content that we wanted to make. We knew there were certain kinds of content that would get us more views and more subscribers really quickly, bike reviews and, van builds and that kind of stuff. And we were like, no, that's not what we want to do. We want to do this about racing, about performance, about like, basically the adventures and what we're learning. And I think we did a pretty good job
It's made for a much slower build on our channel than any other channels, I think. But also like now we're at a point where we get to do the videos that we want to be doing and they're well received. And it took a long time to build that community, but it was totally worth it. It's worth
it. And early on, before that happened, you described this moment when you picked up 3,000 subscribers, sounds like through collaborations with other YouTubers who had a high degree of influence. So that strategy of leveraging other people's audiences is often a highly effective one. Prior to that, when it hadn't started to take off, and Sid, as you said, this has kind of been a slow burn and you've built an audience steadily, that often leads to the most loyal, highest quality audiences because they're true fans who are going to stick around. But as you were on that path, did you ever have moments when you felt like, yeah, this isn't going to work? I don't think this is going to work out.
Oh, definitely. I think the whole first year we were doing YouTube, I think Macky's very optimistic.
I'm eternally optimistic.
But I was like, this is dumb.
I would say
going anywhere.
Just like the growth of our channel, Sid's acceptance of like YouTube as a storytelling medium was a slow burn. Like, initially Sid was like, I don't want to do video. Like, I don't like doing video stuff. I don't like being on video. Like, I don't want to do this. And
I did not like having a camera stuffed in my face after I'd had like a bad race. I would get very upset. That that took a year or two. Yeah, I think it's been an evolution for sure. I have finally kind of come to terms with video as a storytelling medium. I think only in the past couple of years, because I've started doing a lot more of the editing, and that's made it a lot more fun for me. I think when we first started, I did not know how to edit a video at all. So Macky was kind of doing all of it, and I was a little more distanced, I think.
Our videos have also improved significantly since Sid started editing. I will
It's true.
very much like
but I think it's because it's like both of us, like we bring different things to the table.
Mm-hmm.
Macky's super technologically capable. Like he can make it do what it needs to do, whereas I get frustrated. But I feel like I'm a bit better at seeing the bigger picture of like, what do people not know about this? Or like, how can we introduce ourselves? And like, how can we, make this a story, and how can we keep the POV interesting? And because I think that was, a trap that we fell into early, which I think was partially because that was what mountain bike YouTube was in 2017, was a lot of straight POV videos.
Yeah, it was either POV, which is what like BKXC did, or it was tips and tricks and how-tos, which is what Seth's Bike Hacks at the time,
and Phil,
and Skills with Phil.
Yeah.
Like those were sort of your two options. And we were like, well, we're more on the POV side because we're racing and we're getting POV. And so it took us a long time, I feel like, to say, okay, what's different and unique about what we're doing, about the story we're telling, and how can we tell that in the best possible way? And that's a combo of using POV. That's important because we're sharing our races, but also we need to sort of like vloggy style, talking to the camera, interviewing each other. So we needed both of those things. And it took us a while to figure out that balance where, initially it was either all POV or all vloggy stuff. And we needed sort of a combo of the two.
And in the midst of all of that, this is stating the obvious, but you're in a relationship. So how did that go?
Mostly good.
Yeah.
I would say we do argue about YouTube videos more than we argue about anything else, which I think is probably
100%.
That's probably good though, because
that's the most stressful thing. Then
and it's always just usually like I want it my way and Macky wants it his way, or I want it my way but I don't actually understand how difficult it is to like create graphics. Like I'll be like, I want an explosion here, and he's like, that's going to take me 2 days.
Yeah.
I'm like, but I want it.
Do you really want an explosion, or maybe we should do not an explosion?
I think always have an explosion if you can.
Thank you.
And you have to think about the level of effort that it's going to take to get that explosion. So in the midst of all of this going on, I think another thing that I find to be really interesting about the content that you all create is that it's oriented around a discipline of cycling that is not the most popular in the United States right now, right? Like cross-country mountain bike racing. I grew up doing it in the late 80s, early 90s during the heyday of cross-country mountain bike racing, when the United States was still pretty dominant before it shifted to Europe. And I was in the industry for a minute and had the opportunity to kind of see Norba mountain bike racing at its peak during that time. It was pretty amazing. I still love the discipline. I strongly believe that I think we've seen it. Like there's definitely been a resurgence and it's on the rise. And also with so many people into gravel cycling now, bikes getting more rugged, they're adding suspension, fatter tires. The next thing you know, you start turning on the bikes and you're mountain biking, right? And you're cross-country mountain biking. But in the midst of all this, gravel starts to get super hot and you haven't gone in that direction. Why have you decided to stay the course and do what you're doing as athletes and creators?
Well, so for a long time, we were racing enduro essentially exclusively from about 2013 to 2019. And in 2019, we both sort of said, we've enjoyed enduro. It's great. We were racing a bunch of EWS. The Enduro World Series was getting more serious is maybe the best word.
It's getting a lot harder to dabble in EWS racing. You know, we were kind of at the point where we're like, we would need to move to Europe to do this.
Yeah, either we need to commit to like racing the whole series, at which point we need to be in Europe because 5 out of the 7 races are in Europe every year.
And to just good at riding that style of trails, we pretty much would have had to do that.
And for people who are listening who don't know what enduro is, which is probably most of the people who are listening, I've started to go deep in a cycling direction with this podcast. It's not entirely or even partially a cycling podcast. Cycling is kind of the thing that enables us to have conversations about all kinds of other things. But what is enduro for someone who has no idea what we're talking about?
So enduro is technically a downhill discipline, but you typically pedal the bikes to the top of the hill and race down, and you'll do multiple stages in a day. The name comes from moto enduro, which would usually be like a very big loop, which had timed segments on it. So in mountain bike enduro, the segments are pretty much exclusively downhill that are timed, but you might be out on the bike for 7-8 hours a day. There's a lot of variance in enduro races, especially in the US. Like some of them are in bike parks and you actually take a chairlift to the top. But I think the most pure definition of enduro is like you're riding to the top of the hill, it's untimed, you can take as long as you want, and then you race down.
And then they combine your times from all of those stages, and whoever has the shortest time or the fastest time wins. And this is in contrast to cross country, which is a mass start event. So everybody starts together, and then the first person, you'll do one or multiple loops, and the first person to cross the finish line wins. And then on the other side is downhill, where you will practice a single stage or a single course a bunch of times. And then you race that course, and you get one shot. Whoever has the fastest time wins. So enduro was sort of something in between those two, in that, it's more like downhill and that you're only timed on the descents, but you needed the fitness to be able to pedal your bike to the top. You needed a bike that could pedal to the top. And so it was somewhere in between. And it sort of saw a big surge and was the new hot thing in 2012, 2013. We sort of saw that, said, hey, cool, enduro looks fun. We're going to do that. It's the new thing. Raced that. And then around 2019 said, really, we want to be able to race whatever kind of racing looks fun. We want to be able to race these bucket list events that, you're in an epic place or it's an especially difficult race. And to be able to do that, we need to get fitter, because we had the descending skills. We had enough fitness to ride our bikes all day, but not to ride them really fast for, 2 hours like you would in a cross country. So at that point, we started training for our fitness more, doing a different, a mix of events. And at this point, we're doing, a little bit of everything, although I'd say our focus is more on the cross country side at this point.
And Macky, I don't want to body shame you here. I've only seen you on YouTube, but it's, for anyone listening, it's not highly typical to go from a gravity-oriented discipline like enduro or downhill in the direction of cross country, unless you were Sean Palmer. And anyone out there who remembers Sean Palmer, he was and is a legend, and he was tearing it up in downhill racing in the late 90s, and also was a pretty outstanding cross-country racer, and also was into a lot of other disciplines that I don't think were additive to his bicycle racing. Anyhow, so did you have to undergo like a body transformation? Did you have to cut a bunch of weight to be a competitive cross-country racer?
So I actually started off racing cross-country. As I mentioned, I got my pro card in 2006. So when I started racing enduro more seriously, I would say that I gained a certain amount of weight, mostly,
more strength training.
Yeah, I did more strength training. I did less high intensity, long, intervals. So I built a fair amount of muscle, especially upper body muscle, and gained a certain amount of weight over the course of racing enduro. Coming back to cross country has definitely been a transition. We we laugh sometimes because you'll get these pictures of me in races around my fellow competitors, and we have very different builds, would be probably the best way to put it. I tend to have a lot more upper body than a lot of the people I'm racing against. And this year, with the goal of going uphill faster, I have kind of, we've worked with a dietitian and done some body composition stuff, and I have lost about 10 pounds. But with the goal of not decreasing strength or necessarily muscle size a whole lot. So I have, slimmed down somewhat. I would say I'm a little bit skinnier, but mostly I feel like I'm similarly strong. I'm just lighter, which has been great. I've had people say that they can kind of see the difference. It's a little bit harder for me to see it until I look at videos from last year, and then I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see that difference now. But yeah, it has been, I have made an effort to make some body composition changes, which is something I've never sort of thought about or tried to do in the past. And it's been really interesting. It's been a neat experience seeing what that entails and figuring out a way to do that in a way that is healthy for me, in that I'm not constantly thinking about food or worrying about, should I eat this or not eat this? That was our goal going into it, is we want a continued healthy relationship with food. We don't want to be obsessing about it. We don't want to be thinking about it all the time. We just want to make some small tweaks that help us meet our goals without being, real obsessive about it. Because I know for me, that would be very unhealthy.
To go in a completely different direction, first, I feel like I have to note, you mentioned that you went to Middlebury. I had, in my career, I've had several interns from Middlebury, both of whom were national champions in different cycling disciplines. One was Zeke Mostov, who I believe was maybe under 23 or junior time trial national champion. And then shout out Spence Peterson, who was... Yeah, junior, I believe he was junior cross country national champion. So some strong, and Ted King went there as well, right?
Yep. And
so
Leah Davison as well.
Yep.
Yeah. So some strong cyclists coming out of Middlebury, tearing it up. But to go in a completely different direction, what did you learn about cars and vehicles and what can go wrong with them during your time on the road? What should people know about the realities of van life? I have a couple of buddies who were early van lifers. Shout out John Gaffney. But besides going to the bathroom in buckets, what else kind of sucks about van life?
I mean, to be honest, living in a van is really hard. I suspect it's different if your van was built out and cost $150,000. It's probably easier in a lot of ways. But there's just things like, we had a cooler. We never had a fridge. But even if you have a fridge, they're tiny. So you can only fit maybe 2 days worth of food in there.
A lot of grocery shopping, a lot of logistics.
You're constantly looking for a place to get water. You're constantly going grocery shopping. You always need more ice. We had solar panel that we'd set up. But if you're editing, you're never getting enough power for the computers and the charging things. And basically you spent your whole life dealing with logistics instead of it
wasn't much rest.
Relaxing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think as athletes living in a van, the rest piece was very hard. We very rarely had our rest days from training were usually dealing with van logistics, or that would be the day we'd drive, 6 hours to go somewhere else and then look for a campsite and then fill up water and
go grocery shopping. And
yeah, so I think that's something definitely to keep in mind if you want to, if high performance is a goal and you also want to live in a van. It's not easy.
You possibly don't live in a van if you want to live a high performance lifestyle. And then when you made the pivot or the life decision, and I don't know, did you have a house you were living in when you were not on the road at that point in time?
So we basically bounced between Sid's parents' house in Ohio and my parents' house in Taos, New Mexico. And we would just kind of like store stuff there and crash there for a couple weeks at a time.
So van life kind of the wheels came off, not literally, but kind of when COVID hit, which is funny because later in COVID, everyone got into van life because they're like, this is how we can travel.
Yep.
But I think everyone's kind of forgotten that in the early COVID days, we were in Sedona, we were staying with friends, we had been there for a festival. And, it very quickly became clear that like nobody wanted van lifers in their town. All the places that we usually would go to in the spring, like Moab, I think all of Grand County like closed its doors to tourists. Campsites were getting shut down. It was really like not viable. So we ended up going back to Macky's parents' house. His parents were there. Several of his siblings also came back. So pretty much spent COVID living with family. We were sleeping in our van in the driveway. So yeah, that was kind of the point where we were like, we always kind of thought van life would be good in the zombie apocalypse, but like maybe not. Like maybe we had that wrong. And that was sort of when we started thinking about buying a house. And then it took quite a while after that to actually make that happen.
How did you think about that from a storytelling point of view? And I've seen your dramatic video where you announced that like you're coming off the road, but did you have any concerns about what that might do to your brand and your, like just what you were doing as creators?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, we had never been deep into van life YouTube. I think we didn't really have an idyllic van life.
Our van wasn't nice enough to van life.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of what was compelling about your content, because I discovered you prior to you exiting van life, but the feeling that I had was this is what it's actually like.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not in a disparaging way, but I was like, yeah, if you went out and did this and you were a professional athlete, this is probably about what it would be like for most people, unless they have, I don't know, some kind of massive financial backing or a huge trust fund or have some kind of transcendent wealth. You're probably not in a $200,000 vehicle. You're in a shitty Econoline van. No offense.
None taken.
You got your stuff in a cooler. It's probably not a Yeti cooler. You're probably getting in fights about what happened to the last bite of yogurt, whatever. Maybe you didn't. That probably would happen to me.
We did learn if you don't refrigerate half and half, it turns into yogurt and you can still eat it.
Okay. Yeah. So all these factors, there's a confluence of these factors. You're sleeping in your rooftop tent in a driveway, it sounds like. And then when do you decide, okay, we got to pull the plug? And then what kind of second and third order consequences did you think might happen as a result of that?
Yeah. I mean, I think we should probably like 2020, 2021 was rough for us in general. I had a really bad injury at the end of 2019. So I didn't ride a bike between November of 2019 and April of 2021. So about 18 months. So that was, I mean, the pandemic just completely blew our YouTube strategy to bits. Because it was just kind of funny. Like in 2019, end of 2019, we had finally like had the light bulb moment that we should have had years before, which is that our channel is about racing. Then boom, 2021, no racing. I can't even ride. We're not even living in the van anymore. We ended up renting in Boulder from, I guess, November of 2020 when we had been with family until then. We moved up to Boulder in November so that I could do PT there.
3 days a week. Like we basically went to Boulder because Sid's injury was not getting better. And we realized if we want Sid to be able to get back to racing and training the way she wants to, we have to commit more than we were, which was, sort of remote work and seeing this PT up in Boulder every couple months. We're like, we need to be in Boulder 3 times a week, PT, like really commit to this. And we did that. And that's what, finally tipped the balance. But that was a hard time. Just like for many, many people, the pandemic was really hard. And for us, it was just in a slightly different way.
Yeah. So I think by the time we got to actually buying a house, we had not really done van life for over a year. Like we didn't really have another home. We were bouncing between places in Boulder and, his parents' house in Taos. I think there was like a glimmer, like summer of 2021, where like maybe we'll go back to van life, and then it was very quickly like, this is not what I like can do with my injury, like continuing to recover, like that is not going to happen in this environment. So that was when we were like, we're actually going to start trying to buy a house.
And I think we realized, like Sid had said in 2019, we sort of said, okay, this channel is about racing and performing and trying to be as good of bike racers as we can be. What does that look like? What sort of decisions do we need to make with that as our goal? And it became pretty clear that having a house was going to be more beneficial to those goals than living in a van, because then we have a place to recover and we have a place to come back to. And, it decreases the general level of stress on a day-to-day basis so that we can focus more on training and performance and racing. And that, I think we just sort of said, this is the right decision for us. We hope that our YouTube audience will support us in that and will still want to watch our videos and will understand that, we're sharing these goals and we're sharing the fact that what we want to do is be as good of racers as possible. And this is working towards that. And we were really fortunate in that people did, and they've been amazingly supportive. And we've certainly improved our videos since we got a house. Like it made a big difference in our videos.
Set up back here.
That made a big difference.
Dual monitor computer that actually can export videos. It doesn't take 24 hours to do it. I think we definitely had a lot of concerns when we were like, oh, if we like tell people we bought a house, like maybe they won't support us on Patreon anymore, because now we clearly, quote unquote, have money.
We're not dead broke, basically.
We're not, and then I think we kind of have realized over the past year and a half that like people do not expect us to live our entire lives in poverty just because we started. Poverty is not the right word, but like, you know what I mean? Like we don't have to be dirt bags forever just because we were for a while. I do think if anyone's like starting a brand of their own, like maybe don't make it dependent on living in a van and having no money, because that will become unappealing at some point.
Well, I would say think carefully about what is the basis of your channel. And is this something that you want to do long term? Because like our friend Paul, who ran Paul the Punter YouTube channel, his YouTube channel is called Paul the Punter, which is basically like Paul the rookie.
But he actually became like quite a good rider. And I think that was like a difficult transition for him, as people didn't want to see him as a more expert level rider. Yeah,
they wanted him to still be a punter. And so like I think that, and so I'm so glad in hindsight that we called our channel Sid and Macky.
Yeah. Keep it and simple.
That, because, like, sure, if we broke up or, whatever, that would have changed things. That has not happened. But like, I'm so glad that we did that. And I'm so glad that we just said, like, we are going to talk about what we are doing and what we're excited about instead of,
it's made it easier to transition. I think there's still been a transition phase, and this year has been really cool because I think it's the first year that we've started, like people are really, really into the racing content this year and last year. Yeah. So that's been really cool to see, because we're like, this is what we want to be doing. And this is what we want you to be excited about. Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
And then other than at this point, I have to assume that we have a world's first exclusive here, that we are going to see the lost tapes released at some point, the 2013 to 2017 videos. I have to assume that this is going to be like the vegan cyclist. I forget what is the Lost Adventure or whatever his series is called. I assume we're going to get the Sid and Macky lost tapes coming out soon.
Yeah, I'm not sure anybody wants that, but maybe.
we have talked about doing a longer video at some point, sort of talking about our journey.
Maybe when we hit 100,000 subscribers.
Oh,
so,
good idea.
Go subscribe.
Yeah.
Smash that subscribe button. And by the way, rate this podcast 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or Spotify if you're listening.
Yes.
But what do you all want to do next as storytellers? Like, where do you want to take this thing? Where are you going?
It's really funny because that's actually the second time today that someone has asked us that question, and we do not have the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you already got to practice, so.
Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, it's hard. Our previous conversation about an hour ago, someone was encouraging us to enter in film festivals, which had never occurred to us before. So maybe something like that, maybe something a little longer form. Like we definitely have considered, going back and doing some of the videos that we've done as series. Like, could we pull that together into like a single kind of documentary style piece, which I think would be a good storytelling challenge for sure. Because we're pretty good at that story of like, when it's all within one day, but to kind of take the whole race or the whole event and do a longer form video, I think something we're super interested in doing. I mean, we're changing things all the time. We're adding more graphics and figuring out how to do that to like kind of add different layers and give people a better idea of what we're doing.
I think just in general, it's always, it's been a continuous process of learning how to tell a story and make what we're doing understandable and consumable, hopefully to people who aren't even into mountain bike racing. That's always sort of been our ultimate goal, is we want people to be able to share this with, a spouse or a friend or a relative who isn't into mountain biking or isn't into racing, and have them enjoy the video also, because it's a story of, working hard and trying something that's difficult and pushing your limits and failing sometimes and succeeding sometimes. And, those are all the components of, it's all the components of life. I mean, to be totally honest, but also happens to be the components of storytelling. And so our goal is to share that in a way that is accessible to anybody, just the way that, Netflix has the like big wave surfer series that like most people aren't big wave surfers and know nothing about it. So how can you make that accessible to everyone? And I think our goal is to do the same, is make this idea of mountain biking and training and racing at a professional level something that anyone can enjoy following and watching.
Yeah.
Well, I certainly have enjoyed following and watching. And Sid and Macky, thanks for being here today. I appreciate you taking time to chop it up with me. And I'm really looking forward to see where this adventure goes next, whether it's on 4 wheels, 18, or in a static dwelling unit. It's exciting. So thanks for making time for this. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you for listening to Choose the Hard Way. I make this content available for free. So please give me a bump and share this episode with another phenomenal human being like you who likes doing hard things. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, hit 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and please leave a positive review. It makes a huge difference. It helps more people find the show. I feel like I sound like a broken record, but these things are real, and I would really appreciate it if you could do them. Sign up for the newsletter at choosethehardway.com to get exclusive stories about the stories behind these stories, episode updates, and more. Choose the Hard Way is a Big Truck production. It is produced and edited by Anthony Palmer at Palm Tree Podco. Emily Miles provides digital and marketing support. Jeffrey Nebellini is the world-renowned designer behind our striking brand identity and the Choose the Hard Way logo. The content for this show is created by me, Andrew Vance.